Welcome back to ASBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Elliot Grigg, which means one thing and one thing only. We are in preview mode. We are at a heavyweight fight as Johnny Fisher takes that step up against Alen the Savage Babic. We're coming on to the fight in a little bit, mate, but kind of talking about Johnny Fisher here. He's the man that's being rolled through the matchroom boxing hype train. He's you know, Eddie Hearn's even said that in years to come, he could potentially fight, challenge, or even win a world title down the line. He's still only 25 years old, mate. But based on what Eddie Hearn said, and kind of a topic that we've talked about once before, or a couple of times before, ASBR. That's where I want to go with as my first question to you, mate. Elliot, just how far do you believe Johnny Fisher can go? Can he win a British title? European? Could he be world champion? Could he become undisputed world heavyweight champion? How far is Johnny Bosch Fisher going?
Thank you, Paul. I mean, that's a tough question, this Paul, isn't it? Because I mean, on the one hand, it's like the sort of thing that can be clipped, and I'll be end up on a short somewhere saying I think Johnny Fisher's career will eclipse Usyk's. But I think, do I think Johnny Fisher, like I say, he's a young guy, 25 years old. Obviously, there's a lot of miles still left to go on the clock, a lot of fights still to be had, and obviously, I think he only had something like what is it, 11 fights or something like that, 10, 11 fights. So it's hard to really throw too much judgment on the stage. Could I think he could win a British title? Yes. Do you think he could become British champion? I do believe that. Could he become European champion? Possibly. Possibly think he could become European British champion. World champion is where I start to get a bit like, I mean, there'd have to be a kind of favourable run, I think, that would have to take him to that. But I look at people that have been world champion at heavyweight. Charles Martin over recent times, for example. I think, like, could Johnny Fisher get to like that? Could he have a favourable run, some favourable promotion, and maybe pick up a fragmented world title against someone average? Maybe. But I don't necessarily see him fighting the likes of, even if he takes someone like Daniel Dubois, for example, like around that age. Do I see him beating someone like that? No. So for me, it would take real generous matchmaking, frankly, for him to maybe pick up a world title from what I've seen so far, or significant improvement. But I do think the signs are there that he could win a British or a European. I think that's fair to say. But also look around, so I'm not going to throw shade at anyone else, but I look around at some of the other guys in the division. Someone like Wardley, someone like Clark. Could Fisher go in and fight those guys? Probably. Think he could. I don't think there's necessarily that strong actually at heavyweight beyond the kind of like sort of top, for especially British level, beyond the sort of like obviously the Furies, Joshua's, Daniel Dubois, guys that nature. Then maybe if you look at the top 10, yeah, below that, quite weak. So yeah, potentially if he gets favourable. But I think British and European for me. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, mate. I think starting what you said there, I mean, it's one of them where I could definitely foresee how Johnny Fisher could maybe put these wins together, fight the right people at the right time, and get a world title shot. You know what boxing's like. We were talking about like Steve Claggett last week or the week before fighting Teofimo Lopez. Does Steve Claggett deserve that shot at Teofimo Lopez? Probably not. No, a lot of people hadn't heard of him. He's 7 defeats on the record, but he's fighting for a world title just because he has a good ranking with the WBO, because he picked up a few of these intercontinental trinkets or whatever it is. Well, Johnny Fisher could probably do that, and with a smart promoter like Eddie Hearn on board and whoever is his manager or whatever, it would not surprise me. And just the name, the tickets that he sells, people would be like, "Do you know what? I want to take my voluntary defense against Johnny Fisher in however many years." And like I could definitely see that happening. I don't think he'll ever become world champion, mind you. I don't see a world where the Rumford Bull wins a world title, to be honest. As much as I would maybe want it to happen just because it's funny. Um European is the tricky one, I think. What is European level? Do you know what I mean? Like what is European level? You look at like one of the most recent European champions at heavy, it was Caballal, who then didn't box for 10 years and then has come out and looked sensational in his fight since. Against Frank Sanchez and Makhmudov. So, if you're fighting someone like Caballal, I don't think Johnny Fisher could win a European title either. I do see him winning the Lonsdale belt. I think that he could become British champion. And let's be honest, Johnny Fisher isn't one of these fighters that's saying, I'm going to be world champion. Like, I reckon deep down, if you said to Johnny Fisher, you'll win a British title, you'll challenge for a European once or twice, and you'll even challenge for a world title, he'd be happy enough. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I might be wrong, and he might be sitting there watching this going, what's the clown from Belfast talking about? Fair enough. I just don't ever see him winning a world title, mate. And a push a European. I do see him winning the Lonsdale belt though. And we've said it countless times before, to win a Lonsdale belt, to win the British title, you have to be a very, very good fighter. Look at how many fighters have tried and failed. Do you know what I mean? You have to be very, very good to win a British title. And I think Johnny Fisher can do that. So yeah, I'll go and say that Fisher can win a British, but I'm reluctant to say he can go any further. Before we come to predictions, on this actual fight, mate, I kind of want to ask you a bit about Alen Babic here. Babic, there was kind of a hype train going on about Babic, and then he fought for the WBC Bridgerweight title against Rosansky, got stopped in a round. Rosansky's then since been stopped in a round by Akoli. Is this a step up for Johnny Fisher in your eyes? Or do you, for want of a better word, see Alen Babic as a stepping stone and he's just a poor fighter with a big name?
I think he's definitely a full fighter with a big name. But I think in some ways I do think this is a step up, only because I think Babic will be game. That's what I think he'll bring. I think Babic will kind of see this as opportunity himself, to and I'm going to use this pun purposefully. I think he sees his chance, to really sort of put on a show at the Copper Bosch arena when it comes down to it. But I think I do see this as Babic being motivated. That's why I see it as being a potential step up. I think Fisher has fought a lot of guys that don't necessarily. They're kind of like records, sort of 7-4, 6-2 sort of guys, as well. They're kind of inexperienced, just sort of blasted them out the way. I don't necessarily think Babic is there for that sort of experience. Frankly, I'm not necessarily saying Babic is a great fighter. He's not going to get that coming to him, but I think he's going to going into this more mentally focused and more mentally motivated to actually put on a show and kind of derail some of the sort of hype train that is Johnny Fisher. So I see that as actually being where the step up lies, not necessarily in Babic's size or ability. And I think you mentioned Babic being humbled a bit, obviously, with what happened versus Rosansky. And I think that needed to happen in some ways as well, because people were getting far, far too carried away with Alen Babic. I don't want to mention any fighters from Albania, Paul, but you've been going and saying the similar things about guys that have come out of there as well. You put yourself on a hit list. Some of the things you've been saying, so I'm not going to go down that route. But I think there's certain names which tend to just seem to have hype, undeserved hype behind them. And for me, Babic is that. So I feel there is a step up, but equally I feel that both statements are true. Equally, I feel that Babic is a guy with a sort of big name and a big profile, but frankly doesn't necessarily back it up when it comes to pro boxing.
Yeah, mate, completely fair assessment, and I can't really disagree or add much more. I think it's a step up considering what Johnny Fisher's faced, albeit his last couple have maybe on paper been like a step up in terms of their record and resume and stuff. But yeah, it's certainly the biggest name he'll have fought. He's obviously won the Southern area already, Johnny Fisher. It's a natural step up from that, yeah. But what level is Alen Babic really? That's another question, I think, for another day. Yeah, I do see it as a step up, but I also see Alen Babic as, a very limited fighter, let's put it that way. Come to the end of our video, mate, so it is that time. Predictions, as always. I'm not going to be chivalrous and go first. I am confident with my prediction. I'll put it that way. But you tell me first, how does this one play out?
You know what, Paul? I see the one for Bull marching on, baby. I have to say, I really do. I think he's too big for Babic as well. I really do. I think he'll kind of blast through Babic a bit. Stoppage, I think, is how I see this. I mean, obviously it's a 10-round fight. I don't see it going 10 rounds. Could I see Babic being competitive for the first couple? Yes. I could actually see someone like two Fisher blasting him out there, maybe if you're around 4-5. I really see him kind of maybe like, I mean, a lot of his stoppages have come early, very early. I think the last one was at Armstrong, one was in 7. The rest of them tend to be sort of 1-2 sort of rounders. I can maybe see him Babic kind of being competitive for the first couple, but I can see him getting hurt. I can maybe see him getting stopped somewhere around sort of 3-4-5. I really can. I think as soon as Fisher starts sort of teeing and finding him, I think that will be it for Babic. I see a bit of Fisher being too big. So yeah, overwhelmed by the Rolf Ball, Copper Bosch arena, and then give it sort of maybe 5-6 fights time. You could be sitting there with your face, you could be hearing and the new as Johnny Fisher, picks up a fragmented belt, maybe against Anthony Joshua. We don't know. We don't know how it's going to play out. But I do think this. I don't see his O. I don't see Fisher's O going to Alen Babic. I really don't.
Yeah, mate, couldn't put it any better myself. I'm not going to add too much more to it or put anything or beat around the bush. I'm just going to simply say the Rumford Bull, Johnny Fisher, wins this inside 2 rounds. I don't see Babic going any further than 6 minutes. That's all. That's all I have to say on the matter. Guys, let us know your predictions on this fight. Someone's getting knocked out. Who's it going to be? Let us know your thoughts. How far can Johnny Fisher go as well? Do you see him, going all the way, fighting for a world title? His British title is ceiling. Where do you see the ceiling for the Romford Bull? Elliot, I appreciate your time once again, mate. As always, week in, week out. Guys, appreciate you watching. Plenty more content on the channel, as we always say. Loads of different types of videos, reviews of shows. Probably be there on the 6th of July here as well, the Copper Box. So stay tuned for all the content coming on the channel, and I'll speak to you again soon, Elliot. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Big John, if you're watching this, give us a like, give us a retweet. Thank you very much. And yeah, thank you very much, guys, for watching.